and to drive it, if they're old enough, Mert said. Old Mert Entwistle knew which side his bread was buttered on, and he didn't say what must have been as obvious to him as to the rest of us. If that money's worrying you so bad, Byron, old kid... If that money's worrying you so bad, Byron, old kid, old socks, I'll just take it off your hands. After all, what are friends for?
That's right, wanting to learn to drive on it. For Christ's sake. Byron said with a shudder. Then what happens at the end of the year if you figure the tax wrong and you don't have enough left over to pay the overdraft you got to pay out of your own pocket or maybe even borrow it from one of those kindly loan agencies, and they audit you anyway you know it. Don't matter. And when the government audits you, they always take more who can fight Uncle Sam. He puts his hand inside your shirt and squeezes your tit until it's purple, and you end up getting a short end. Christ. He lapsed into the more silence, thinking of what terrible bad luck he had to inherit that $35,000. Andy Dufresne had been spreading tar with a big brush less than 15 feet away, and now he tossed it into his pail and walked over to where Merritt and Hadley were sitting. We all tightened up, and I saw one of the other screws. Tim Youngblood dragged his hand down to where his pistol was holstered, and one of the fellows in the Century Tower struck his partner in the arm with the bolt turned to. For one moment I thought Andy was going to get shot or clubbed or both. Then he said very softly to Hadley, "Do you trust your wife?" Hadley just stared at him. He was starting to get red in the face, and I knew that was a bad sign. In about 3 seconds, he was going to pull his billy club and give Andy the butt end of it right in the solar plex. Where that big bundle of nerves it is. A hard enough hit there can kill you, but they always go for it. If it doesn't kill you, it would paralyze you long enough to forget whatever cute move it was that you had planned. "Boy," Hadley said, "I'll give you just one chance to pick up that brush, and then you are going off this roof on your head."
Do you think we should stop since it's like the bell's about to ring?
What time is it?
It is.
Oh.
Late.
Yep.
Andy just looked at him, very calm and still. His eyes were like ice. It was as if he hadn't heard. And I found myself wanting to tell him how it was, to give him the crash course. The crash course is, you never let on that you hear the guards talking. You never try to horn in on their conversation unless you're asked. Then you always tell them just what they want to hear and shut up again. Black man, white man, red man, yellow man. In prison it doesn't matter, because we've got our own brand of equality. In prison, every con's a lowlife. And you have to get used to the idea if you intend to survive men like Hadley and Greg Stanis, who really would kill you just as soon as look at you. When you're in stir, you belong to the state, and if you forget it, woe is you. I've known men who've lost eyes, men who've lost toes and fingers. I knew one man who lost the tip of his penis and counted himself lucky that was all he lost. I wanted to tell Andy that it was already too late. He could go back and pick up his brush, and there would still be some big lug waiting for him in the shower that night, ready to Charlie horse both of his legs and leave him writhing in the cement. You could buy a lug like that for a pack of cigarettes or 3 Baby Ruths. Most of all, I wanted to tell him not to make it any worse than it already was.
What I did was to keep running tar out onto the roof as if nothing at all was happening. Like everyone else, I look after my own ass first. I have to. It's cracked already, and Shawshank, there had always been Hadley willing to finish the job of breaking it.
Andy said, "Maybe I put it wrong. Whether you trust her or not is immaterial. The problem is whether or not you believe she would ever go behind your back and try to hamstring you."
Hadley got up. Mert got up. Tim Youngblood got up. Hadley's face was as red as the side of a brick house. Your only problem, he said, is going to be how many bones you still have got unbroken. You can count them in the infirmary. Come on, Mert. We're throwing this sucker over the side.
Tim Youngblood drew his gun. The rest of us kept tarring like mad. The sun beat down. They were going to do it. Hadley and Mert were simply going to pitch him over the side. Terrible accident. Dufresne, prisoner 81433SHNK, was taking a couple of empties down and slipped on the ladder. Too bad.
They laid hold of him, Mert on the right arm, Hadley on the left. Andy didn't resist. His eyes never left Hadley's red face.
If you've got her thumb on her, Mr. Hadley, he said in the same calm, composed voice, there's not a reason why you shouldn't have every cent of that money. Final score. Mr. Byron Hadley, 35,000. Uncle Sam, zip. Mert started to drag him toward the edge.
Hadley just stood there for a moment. Andy was like a rope between them in a tug-of-war game. Then Hadley said, "Hold on 1 second, Mert. What do you mean, boy?"
I mean, if you've got your thumb on your wife, you can give it to her, Andy said. You better start making sense, boy, or you're going over. The IRS allows you a one-time only gift to your spouse, Andy said. It's good up to $60,000. Hadley was now looking at Andy as if he had been poleaxed. Nah, that ain't right, he said. Tax-free? Tax-free, Andy said. IRS can't touch 1 cent. How would you know a thing like that? Tim Youngblood said. He used to be a banker. Byron, I suppose he might shut your head, Trout, Hadley said without looking at him.
Tim Youngblood flushed and shut up. Some of the guards called him Trout because of his thick lips and buggy eyes. Hadley kept looking at Andy. You're the smart banker who shot his wife. Why should I believe a smart banker like you so I can wind up in here breaking rocks right alongside you? You'd like that, wouldn't you?
Andy said quietly, if you went to jail for tax evasion, you'd go to a federal penitentiary, not Shawshank. But you won't. The tax-free gift to the spouse is a perfectly legal loophole. I've done dozens, no, hundreds of them. It's meant primarily for people with small businesses to pass on, or for people who come into one-time only windfalls like yourself.
I think you're lying, Hadley said. But he didn't. You could see it. He didn't. There was an emotion dawning on his face. Something that was grotesque, overlying that long, ugly countenance, and that receding, sunburned brow. An almost obscene emotion. When seen on the features of Byron Hadley, it was hope.
No, I'm not lying. There's no reason why you should take my word for it either. Engage a lawyer. Ambulance chasing highway robbers sobs, Hadley cried. Andy shrugged. Then go to the IRS. They'll tell you the same thing for free. Actually, you don't need me to tell you at all. You would have investigated the matter for yourself. You're right. I don't need any smart, wife-killing banker to show me where the bear goes in the woods. You'll need a tax lawyer or a banker to set up the gift for you, and that will cost you something, Andy said. Or, if you were interested, I'd be glad to set it up for you nearly free of charge. The price would be 3 beers apiece for my co-workers. Co-workers, Mert said and let out a rusty guffaw. He slapped his knee. A real knee slapper was old Mert, and I hope he died of intestinal cancer in a part of the world where morphine is as of yet undiscovered. Co-workers ain't that cute. Co-workers, you ain't got any.
Shut your frickin' trap. Hadley ground and Mert shut. Hadley looked at Andy again. What was you saying? English.
I was saying that I'd only ask 3 beers apiece for my coworkers, if that seems fair, Andy said. I think a man feels more like a man when he's working out of doors in the springtime if he can have a bottle of suds. That's only my opinion. It would go down smooth, and I'm sure you'd have your gratitude.
I had talked to some of the other men who were up there that day. Rennie Martin, Logan St. Pierre, and Paul Bonsaint. Were 3 of them. And well, we all saw the same thing then, felt the same thing. Suddenly it was Andy who had the upper hand. It was Hadley who had the gun on his hip and the billy in his hand. Hadley, who's had his friend Greg Stamus behind him the whole time, no, and the whole prison administration behind Stamus. The whole power of the state behind that, but all at once in the golden sunshine it didn't matter, and I felt my heart leap up in my chest as it never has since the truck drove me and 4 others through the gate back in 1938, and I stepped out into the exercise yard. Andy was looking at Hadley with those cold, clear, calm eyes, and it wasn't just the 35,000 then. We all agreed on that. I've played it over and over in my mind, and I know. It was a man against man, and Andy simply forced him, the way a strong man could force a weaker man's wrist to the table in a game of Indian wrestling. There was no reason, you see, why Hadley couldn't give Mert the nod at the very minute. Pitched Andy out over the side onto his head and still taking Andy's advice, no reason, but he didn't.
I could get you all a couple of beers if I wanted to, Hadley said. A beer does taste good while you're working. The colossal bastard even managed to sound magnanimous. I'd just give you one piece of advice the IRS wouldn't bother with, Andy said. His eyes were axed unwinkingly at Hadley's. Make the gift to your wife if you're sure. If you think there's even a chance she might double-cross you or back-shoot you, we could work out something else.
Double-cross me, Hadley asked harshly. Double-cross me, Mr. Hotshot Banker, if she ain't her way through the boxcar of X-Lax. She wouldn't dare fart unless I gave her the nod.
Mert Youngblood and the other screws yucked it up dutifully. Andy never cracked a smile. I'll write down the forms you need, he said. You can get them at the post office and I'll fill them out for your signature. That sounded suitably important, and Hadley's chest swelled. Then he glared round at the rest of us and hollered, What are you Jimmies staring at? Move your asses, goddammit. He looked back at Andy. You come over here with me, hotshot, and listen to me well. If you're messing with me somehow, you're gonna find yourself chasing your own head around Shower C before the week's out.
Yes, I understand that, Andy said softly. And he didn't understand the way it turned out. He understood a lot more than I did, more than any of us did.